So for the next episode, we have Keith Meola. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, Keith Meola. And Keith is a Bitcoiner, a traveler, uh, a lighting engineer, and a writer, I suppose.
Yeah.
I found your website from BTC Isla, and then found your writings, found your Instagram, thought you're pretty cool. So I asked you to come on and have a chat. And yeah, I suppose you can take it over from here if you want to just tell us how you found Bitcoin and a bit about your journey traveling around and using Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you said, I kind of do a lot of things. Like career-wise, yeah, I work in the entertainment industry. So this year I'm kind of taking a pause to do a lot of traveling and living abroad. Like right now I'm actually in Italy. And throughout the way, I'm always trying to incorporate Bitcoin and I guess I can get into that in a bit, but I guess I started my Bitcoin journey like I guess I don't know if you say unofficially or officially, but back in 2021 is when when I first bought it, but I didn't actually like understand it or what I was doing. It was more so like kind of I was in it for like the meme of it all because I've been like a long time Redditor and I actually didn't find like Wall Street bets until the whole GameStop thing happened. But obviously, just being a long time on Reddit or Bitcoin is always throughout the years, always, you run into it every so often via memes or whatever. So I kind of just got into it or started buying it, a couple of purchases here and there as an investment, kind of for the meme. So I was also getting into, I guess, traditional investing around the same time during the pandemic and such. But it really wasn't until about a year ago, um, right around the time that Bitcoin Atlantis happened in Madeira last year in 2024. So it was around March, February, that I would say I truly like went down the rabbit hole, as we like to say. And yeah, since then I've kind of just been obsessed. I have a bit of a obsessive personality, so when I like find something that I like, I like just go hardcore. Like it happened with Italian language. It happens with rock climbing, and that happened again with Bitcoin. So it's like just consuming it, just reading about it, watching videos, listening to podcasts. Started writing about it. Now I'm involved with, as you said, like BTC Isla, which is a Bitcoin circular economy, and Isla Mujeres, which is off the coast of Cancun, Mexico. So yeah, the past year it's like kind of just been like eat, sleep, breathe Bitcoin, and then again it's also which branched into Noster. Um, Obviously, yeah, it's a bummer that I didn't really go down the rabbit hole in 2021 when I first started
Yeah,
buying it.
man.
But like over the years, me, my dad, and my brother, they're also Bitcoiners. We kind of all got into it together, but I'm definitely a bit more obsessive and much bit more hardcore about it, like living on the full Bitcoin standard, and like all that good stuff.
Yeah, it must be
But
nice. It must be nice having your dad and your brother as Bitcoiners as well, because I think for me and probably most Bitcoiners starting off, you find this thing and then you're like, do I really understand this? Could this all be true? Is it as good as what I think it is?
mm,
And then maybe you want to start talking to people without sounding crazy. And for me, especially, I didn't really have anybody. So it's nice. Did you get into Bitcoin first and then you brought them in, or were they already in the space?
yeah,
Or
no, I guess I started it, and then I guess back in 2021, we used to when I was still living at home, we would do weekly dinners at my grandpa's house.
yeah,
Me, my dad, my brother, and my grandpa. So we'd always have obviously see each other weekly. Because my dad doesn't lives a little further away, but it was always a time to always just obviously chat about what was going on in our lives and around the world. And we used to always kind of have CNBC on in the background at times before dinner. So, and obviously at that time at GameStop and obviously Bitcoin more and more so is prominent. So we used to talk about it. I used to like joke with them. I kind of like would, I guess, act as a Bitcoin maxi in an ironic sense, kind of
yeah,
like for the meme of it all, like
yeah,
telling them, oh, you guys need to be buying like all of your, like, just throw all of your money into it, even though I wasn't doing it. I was kind of just like joking around with them in a sense. Um, but obviously now they're much more they would consider themselves definitely some pretty hardcore Bitcoiners, and it is nice to have them to talk to
yeah,
because yeah, obviously a lot of with Noster and with obviously the internet, well, I have a lot of friends that are into Bitcoin, but it's mostly online friends.
yeah.
So it's nice in real life to have some people, and yeah, plus we have a group chat, obviously the three of us, so it's nice to send some memes back and forth and just like text about what's going on or if there's news or anything or
Yeah.
etc. So, but it is nice to have them and to chat about it with them.
Definitely, it's very hard to keep up with all the news, isn't it? Because I'm in a few different
Yeah.
groups, and sometimes I just mute them, and then other times I'm spending literally like an hour just trying to get through them and just going to the latest message, and it's very hard to keep up with stuff. So it's good that you have people there that you know and you trust, and you can send stuff back and forth because they know what you're interested in and what you're not
Mm.
interested in. Um, so I suppose whenever you get into it, for me, it was more like a store of value thing. It was a
Uh-huh.
long-term play. It was like a 10-year plan, then it was like a retirement plan. So I know you're quite active spending your Bitcoin and using it as a medium of exchange.
Hmm.
So when you started out, was it just like this meme thing that you always wanted to spend and use, or was it like a store of value thing? And also, have you and your brother and your father always been on the same level when it comes to, whether you're spending or holding, hodling, should we say? Or the,
Uh, oh, yeah, I would say, well, yes, yeah, we all, the three of us, or I guess me, we started as more of an investment tool.
mm,
They also see it more as of an investment. I don't think they're entirely opposed to spending it, but they obviously just buy and hold and
yeah,
treat it more so as an asset to acquire and to spend, or not to spend, sorry, to save. But yeah, in October I went full Bitcoin standard. Thanks to Strike and their services. So now I like live full Bitcoin. So I don't have any like fiat money, which it was a bit of an adjustment period. I've adjusted pretty well now, I would say. So like I'm forced to spend it because it's all I
that's all you
have.
have. Yeah,
But I really enjoy using it as money. That's what obviously what it is.
yeah,
Um, and I think slowly but surely my dad and brother will start spending it as well
yeah.
as it becomes obviously more accepted. But I like
So,
go out of my way to find places with BTC map and such.
yeah, so you've burnt the boats. Essentially, you've burnt the boats. There's no going back.
Yeah, well, I don't plan to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, a
well,
couple.
for me,
Sorry.
it's actually only recently when I started to look at places like El Salvador and listen to more podcasts and find out that people were actually using it more as money because, like, when I was obviously using it as a store of value, as a long-term thing. And then when I'm talking to my friends and family, I'm saying, you can keep this as like a pension plan or as a retirement fund or just as an asset, to hold long-term or whatever. But then people would say, but you can't use it. And my thing would always be coming back to them like people are spending it, people can
Hmm.
use it to buy stuff, and they'd say like, "Well, what have you bought with it?" And I was like, "Well, nothing." So uh, I started looking at that, and when I started to branch out and sort of look deeper into it, I found that there was obviously countries in African countries that were using it, and they were using it because they had to because their money was inflating at such a massive rate, and then
Hmm.
obviously all the stuff that's happening in Latin America as well. So that's what this past couple of months I just been following more of those podcasts and those people on Instagram and stuff that are actually using it and trying to create these circular economies and stuff. And I thought then I had this idea that maybe that's what I should be doing here because I think if I'm able to go to say my hairdresser or my butcher or my greengrocer and say, can I pay you in Bitcoin? That might get them interested.
Hmm.
And then if people can see me using it, they might actually say, okay, so this is like even you did, this is a cool meme. This is a thing that we can, something that's fun that we can do. It's outside the system or whatever. And hopefully by maybe using it, then they'll start to learn, actually if you hold on to this stuff, it could
Yeah.
be worth a lot more in the future. So I'm just getting into that whole idea of spending it because I was just hodl, 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 hodl.
Hmm.
And I kind of was like, I would call myself a toxic Bitcoiner because when people say, when are you going to sell it? And I'm like, I'm never going to sell it. But like you said, it's money. And, what do you do with money? You save it for a certain time until you need it and then you spend it. You can't hold on to it forever. So I'm just coming around to your way of thinking now. And I'm starting to think that maybe I should be moving towards a Bitcoin standard, although it's very hard. I can't get my employer to pay me in Bitcoin, but I've
Hmm.
started to think now maybe there's something else that I can do, a service that I can offer, and have people pay me in Bitcoin. Um, so what's your experience been of traveling around and using your Bitcoin?
Um, Also, I agree with pretty much everything you just said, and I do have like my like I pretty much treat it as like I have my savings, like my main stack that I like, will never actually spend or touch. But then I like have my the money that I live my life with, which I am and I'm constantly spending in. But yeah, so I've been a long time traveler for a while, I guess. Yeah, ever since I graduated college back in maybe around 8 years ago by now. But I travel a lot for work as well. But it was around the middle of last year that I decided that I need to travel long term. It's something I've always wanted to do, live abroad. And it was either like I just turned 30 in January. Lease was up at the end of November for my apartment. So it was like clear that I was at a crossroads. Like, all right, I either gotta like commit to the travel thing and actually do it, or just not do it. Because for years I've been in between of like trying to do everything, like trying to travel a lot, trying to progress career, trying to, establish roots and build a good life at home. But yeah, it was time to make the decision. Obviously, I made the decision to travel, and it was, I guess, in no October, September ish. I'm not sure if the listeners would know, but yeah, you obviously are aware of BTC Isla, which is island in Spanish. I found the founder of that. Her name is Isabella Santos on YouTube, and she also does a bit of work for Bitcoin Magazine. But I pretty much saw she started a YouTube channel for the island, which and she was saying that it was kind of hard and like just talking about the struggles of it. So I just straight up just messaged her on Noster. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about traveling all next year. I'd love to, come down to the island and just like help you out with whatever I could be of use for.
Yeah.
And she was like, yes, please, of course, come on down. So I went down there in January this year for spent 2 weeks on the island. Um, it was a great time. Orange built a couple merchants, but I also built the website and worked built some other stuff. Like I pretty much developed this I don't know what to call it, like a flyer, like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, or which I guess is in your it's some kind of A size. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's say on a piece of paper. And to hand out to merchants that would essentially just explain what Bitcoin was from like why it was good for a business standpoint. And actually, Bitcoin.rocks, I don't know if you know the website, but they also have a flyer that you can order and a pamphlet. And I kind of just took that info and made it into something you can print out at home because their pamphlet you can't really print. And I translated it into Spanish and made some like QR codes and like also added a couple other auxiliary info to it. And so that's been helpful. And now actually I'm also reworking that in Italian and in English and really also working on like a master document, but a little off topic. But yeah, so I traveled 2 weeks in BTC Isla. I think I spent like 700,000 sats over the course of 2 weeks on the island. Uh
uh,
at the time, only like 15 merchants were accepting. Now it's about 10 more. So it's growing. Big things are happening down there. And it's still quite young. It was created February of 2020. Well, February last year, 24. So just over a year
yeah.
old and she's making great progress. I guess we're making great progress because I'm still consider myself part of the teams. I'm still involved and I run the Noster page. I also help with the Twitter page a little bit, but I'm mostly Noster and I also have an open source. I forget what it's called, but the open source map that BTC Map uses.
Yeah.
I have made an account, so I edit that directly and constantly add new merchants and stuff. But outside of BTC Isla, I did find one place in Belize that used it, and I accepted Bitcoin. They actually accepted it on chain, so I still paid and I was like trying to get him to accept to use Lightning and like teaching him about it, and hopefully he did it. But
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
obviously like, "Oh, I need to look into it." Well, I was like, "Okay, like I'm gonna pay you anyway, and like I'll eat the fee for buying this coffee." So I bought coffee on chain like 4 times,
Yeah. It's
and
like sorry, I was just gonna say, so you mentioned there Noster and you also mentioned the Lightning Network. So you've actually been helping me try and get set up in Noster. I have an
mm.
account now, but I still don't know how to use it. But I've been trying to get on there for like a couple of weeks now, so thanks for helping me out there. But
yeah.
for anybody, so this is people are probably going to know what Bitcoin is, but I'd say most of the listeners aren't really going to know what Nostr is, and they're probably not even going to know what the Lightning Network is. So
Yeah.
if you want to just touch on those.
Sure. Yeah. So to make it at least the lightning brief, because technically it's a bit complicated. I still I need to definitely do my homework on the Lightning Network from a technical standpoint, but essentially, because Bitcoin's a protocol, you can build upon it in layers, much like the internet that we use, I think is layer seven, which is the TCP/IP protocol. I could be wrong. Well, the TCP/IP is the base layer, I believe, and the internet that we use is the HTTP layer. I
Mm,
think. Obviously, feel free to do your research and correct me. Nonetheless, you can scale Bitcoin into layers. On the base layer, like when you say we talk about blocks and on chain versus off chain, on chain is the blocks, the base layer of Bitcoin. There's transactions or blocks are on average um, created every 10 minutes, which means transactions get put into blocks, which means transactions get confirmed on average every 10 minutes. But there's always a waiting pool of transactions. So it could take, if you make a transaction on chain, like when I bought this coffee, um, it took a couple hours for the guy to actually receive the money. However,
mm,
and that obviously, if it's taking a couple hours and you're paying a fee, it can't scale to a global population. But people are developing other protocols on that use Bitcoin. One of them being Lightning, which I'm pretty sure is the largest. Yeah, definitely the largest implementation. It's on layer two. It's essentially a way to use Bitcoin for everyday purchases
mm,
via your smartphone. You scan, pretty much someone generates a QR code for you with an invoice, and then you just scan it and you just confirm the amount and you send it and they get it instantly. Normally, there's no fee, but if there is a fee, it's literally fractions of a US cent, a
mm,
couple of sats, which when Bitcoin's at 100,000 USD to a coin, it's 1,000 sats per dollar or 10 sats per US cent. So even today, actually, is I had to get some cash and I didn't want to withdraw it, like sell Bitcoin to withdraw it from my bank. So I'm here in Rome, so we have there's a big what's it called, Bitcoin meetup group, and I texted someone or texted the group. I was like, hey, and you don't want to sell me euros, I'll obviously give you Bitcoin. So I actually bought like 450 euros worth of Bitcoin today, no via the Lightning Network, which is the largest I've ever done, and there was zero fee, and it was instant. But essentially, Lightning is just a way to use Bitcoin for everyday transactions, like you would pay for your coffee on the Lightning
yeah.
Network, or just think if you think of it that way, like in the future, well, I guess even now, if you're gonna like buy a car in Bitcoin, you would do it on chain and you would pay a little bit of a fee and it would have to go into a block. But if you're just doing your everyday transactions, you'd use the Lightning Network. Um, and I think that's probably all there is to say at this point. Essentially, just a way, it's a part of Bitcoin, but it's a different layer, different way to scale it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's also incorporated into Nostr, which is an acronym for notes and other stuff transmitted over relays. It's essentially a decentralized, open source, um, kind of like new internet in a way. Right now, the main applications are a lot of social media based. Like most people, I would say, use it as kind of like a Twitter alternative, like microblogging. But and I think there's about 70 apps total. You go to Nostr apps, Nostr apps.com. There's about 70 and you could see them all. And I'm definitely not the best at explaining Nostr. I don't understand it the best from a technical standpoint, but essentially it's a decentralized, different internet that's based on value for value. So it has Lightning and Bitcoin integrated into it. And so there's no data harvesting for the social media side of it. There's no ads, there's no algorithms, there's no data harvesting. So it's all based on engagement and interacting with other people to kind of grow. So it definitely does take a bit to actually grow and gain followers and the like, because there's no algorithms pushing your content
Mm,
and you're not being like suggested to like people like if you like by going viral or whatever. But essentially, it incorporates Bitcoin in a value for value way. So if you find value in something, maybe somebody wrote a long form blog or made a video that you liked or a podcast, for instance, um, you can just zap. They're called zaps. You could just send the creator directly Bitcoin instantly via Lightning. So it could even send down to one sat, like literally fractions of a penny, or a couple pennies worth, or a couple dollars worth, or really however much you want. But essentially, it's very young. It's a grassroots movement. I think there's probably right now it's about 18,000 daily active users. I think.
yeah.
But I really like it. I enjoy it. It's good vibes. It's very small, it's very niche, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room to grow.
Would you say then is not the way I think of Nostr is it is essentially censorship resistant? Would it be? Is that true
Hmm.
because it's
Yeah,
decentralized? Yeah,
correct.
so that's what when I started reading about it, I seen actually a lot of people had Nostr profiles, and I was like, why do all these people have it? Maybe I should be looking into this. But like you said about the algorithms that get pushed on, like normal social media, traditional social media, like your Instagram and Facebook, like we're all being, I see it as manipulated and almost socially
Hmm.
engineered, and it's kind of it. It's not really fair because they're taking our data and stuff, and we have
Oh
no
yeah.
control over it. It's so if Nostr is sort of uh, the cure for all that, if people can move to Nostr and post whatever videos they want and say whatever they want, and they're not being manipulated into, oh, you should watch this or you should, follow this person, which is traditional social media is very much, you should follow this person, you should watch
Yeah.
this. So if it's the opposite of that, then it would be brilliant, because I seen that even with the presidential election and stuff. Um, for the last one, there was a lot of that, like manipulation of people's views and stuff. And I suppose X, a lot of people went to X then because it's supposed to be more non-biased,
Mm.
isn't it? But Nostr seems like a pure form of that.
Yeah, it's great. And I should also add that it's all based on private public key cryptography. So essentially, when you create your account, you're essentially creating a private key for yourself. It's very similar to Bitcoin in the sense that you have your public and your private key. And whenever
Mm,
you post anything, you're signing everything you do on Nostr with your private key. So since there's no like really there's no verification from a central authority because there is a central authority, unlike on Twitter or Instagram or all the other garbage out there. Um, and you will see people definitely like every so often, like maybe someone that's big in the space will like I'll get a follow notification, and then it's like I instantly go to their profile and see it's not actually them because it's just some bot or
yeah.
some scammer. But what's cool about it, because you can also once you post something on Nasta, you can't modify it. And you can only delete it. It can only be deleted if you ask the relay you post it to delete it, but they're not obligated to do it. But
Oh,
what's really interesting about this is that if you're a journalist or somebody else in the public face, or even just a regular person, if someone posts something, you can go to the post and verify that it actually came from that person. Because
yeah.
especially in the day and age that we're in now with the rapid improvements in AI, like when you see a screenshot of something, like a screenshot of a tweet or whatever, like you have no way to know if one, it's real, obviously, if the person posted it, if it was modified, if they deleted it. Like it's very easy now to fake screenshots and such. But with
Mm,
Nostr, if you post something, like for instance, I don't know, if I posted something and then you can verify that it was me by quickly just going to the post and seeing that it actually came from my public key, um, which belongs to my account. And another thing that ties into all this, not to get too technical, but something that's really special is that it's all because it's like an ecosystem that works together. You take your private key with you, and you can plug it into all the various apps built on Nostr, and everything, pretty much like all of your following, all of your followers, and all of your social graph, and everything you've done on Nostr is tied to your private key, which is called your NSEC, and your public key is your NPub. And pretty much you have control over yourself because on Instagram and Twitter, like you can request your data, I think, but you don't own your data.
yeah.
But on Nostr, you actually own your data, and like from like the microblogging applications, there's maybe 5 to 10 different apps, and anyone can create an app. It's open source, you can create it right now and launch it immediately. But like if the app that I use, they make some kind of update or whatever, and I no longer want to use the app, instead of like if I jump ship to a different app, it's not like I lose everything. I just plug my, bring my key with me and everything's still there. So it's really interesting. So everyone's kind of using different clients to interact. And it's really amazing. And there's definitely people that can explain it better. And I think much like Bitcoin, the future of this is, I think, uh, extremely positive and extremely powerful, and we're going to use it hopefully in ways that we can't even imagine today.
Yeah,
So
it's like
I'm
even with
excited.
the even with the money, it's just all the problems come when the power is centralized, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's a big thing that once you see that, you can't unsee it. But I think it's
Hmm.
hard for people that haven't looked or gone down the rabbit hole to understand just how much of a problem that is with their money. And I suppose the problems with social media come from the centralization of those things too. And like if you say something wrong on Facebook, say you could have your account, you could have your account banned or whatever, you know. So
Yeah.
um, it's definitely the way forward. I think, Nostr. So I'm gonna have to get researching more and figure out exactly how to use it, you know.
Yeah.
And I suppose what else have you been doing? You were saying there you had translated your leaflet into Spanish. Do you speak Spanish?
No,
Or
Italian.
Italian. So
Italian, yeah. I'm bilingual, fluent in
yeah,
Italian. So yeah, I'm in Italy right now. I guess to tie into the travel. So pretty much, yeah, I'm living in Italy now for a couple months, and while I'm here, I'm doing some Bitcoin stuff. Went to the meetup. We go into BTC Prague in June. I mean, it's not here; it's in Prague, but
yeah,
I'll be using being so close to Prague to go. And there's like only one place in Rome that really accepts Bitcoin. It's like a bar, which the Italian bar is like kind of like a cafe for everyone else.
yeah,
So I've gotten there, and I'm definitely gonna be going back a bunch. But and this is true for when I'm in the US, so no matter where I go, essentially, every time I ask somebody, every time I'm buying something or at a restaurant or whatever, I always ask, "Oh, do you accept Bitcoin?" I already know the answer is no, but I ask anyway, kind of to tie back into what you said earlier. I think it's important just to plant the seed.
yeah,
Um, and I always you well, at least when I'm home, or I guess in Italian too, because when I'm in like in a Spanish speaking country, I just ask, in Spanish if they accept it, but I don't really go further than that. But if
yeah,
I can express myself more, then I'll be like, oh well, like you should let the owner know that like somebody was asking about it. And occasionally I'll even have my pamphlet with me, my little flyer, and I'll like hand them out as well. And
yeah. The flyers.
sometimes
Sorry, go
so
ahead.
I don't know, so sometimes people laugh or whatever, and they're like, "No, that's dumb" or something like that. And I've actually just recently started adding on when they say no. I'll be like, "Oh, okay, well, you will in a couple of years." And
Yeah,
but yeah, so I ask no matter what, even though I know the answer is no, just to plant the seed, get people thinking about it. But occasionally, like I like to go to coffee shops and stuff, and sometimes people ask follow-up questions, like while they're making the coffee
mm,
or whatever. They'll be like, "Oh, like, what exactly is that?" Like, I read about it or I see it in the news, but like, what is that? And then that's always fun for me to, obviously try to contain myself a little bit to have a brief little like 1 minute
yeah.
interaction and try to explain what Bitcoin is in a minute. As we know, it's kind of impossible.
You just
Um,
wheel in a whiteboard and start.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's what I do. And I went to my first Bitcoin conference in El Salvador in January, which was really fun at Plan D. Because after BTC Isla, I went to where did I go after that? Oh yeah, I went straight to El Salvador, and I went to Bitcoin Beach, El Zonte, which was the world's first Bitcoin circular economy. Spent a lot of sats there. And it was great being there because I could say like maybe 75% of the places accept Bitcoin. So when you have this choice, you can, at least in my case, like if I went to a place or a shop and I didn't accept it, I would just leave. And it's
Yeah,
nice to have that power to be like, oh, do you accept it? And they're like, no, it's like, okay, bye. And it's like, because I know I'll obviously can go somewhere else, buy the same thing, pay in Bitcoin, and hopefully the person that says no, they realize, oh, I just lost a customer because I'm not accepting
yeah,
this money. Um, and yeah, so I've been traveling a bit using Bitcoin when I can. I wish I was doing more documenting. I guess tying into what I'm doing in the greater picture with my website, which is I guess a bit because you mentioned, yeah, you read some articles. My website, which is my name, keithmeola.com, Keith, not Kie. Keith is E before. I don't know if it's a problem in Ireland, but all the time, people at home in the US spell it Kie. That's keithmeola.com. Right now, it's a bit generalized. I write about Bitcoin, I write about travel, mostly Italy based stuff because I
mm,
love Italy so much and I've spent a lot of time here and I know the country extremely well. But I would like to find more. Essentially, what I'm trying to do in the Bitcoin space and Nostr is really just find create my, I guess, a space for myself, my own niche, my own corner of the greater community,
Yeah.
um, and eventually maybe get some income via it and transition into more ways to, I guess, make money and be less reliant on my career, which is very physical. Not physical. Well, yeah, I have to be physically, I know, in the theater in the arena, but it's also at the mercy of a lot of external factors that I don't want to be at the mercy of. Like during the
Yeah.
pandemic, I didn't work for 18 months because entertainment was the the least necessary thing to be happening. So I want to, I
Yeah.
guess, be prepared for the next time something happens. But so that's what I'm doing, writing on Bitcoin. That's a bit about travel, working on this big Bitcoin document, I guess, to that when I hand out the flyer or when I give people a QR code to learn more about it, they can scan it and go to this document and kind of get the rundown on what Bitcoin is
Yeah. Whenever
and
you
all
get
this.
that finished, that'll be something good to send me because that would be helpful for me when I'm trying to
Yeah.
because like you said, it's hard to go into somewhere and just be like, oh, do you accept Bitcoin? Because they might laugh at you or whatever. But like you said, it's just planting the seed, isn't it? And I've seen, did I watch a video or did I read somewhere that somebody was doing, like, for your normal debit card that you would have, so it was like a cover, like a sleeve, and it had like a Bitcoin logo on it. And so the guy would go into the shop and he would say, "Oh, do you accept Bitcoin?" And they would say, "No, I don't think so." And then he would take out the card that had the cover, the Bitcoin symbol, and he'd say, "Oh, let's just check. Let's see." And he would just tap the card and he would say, "Oh, it looks like you do." So then he's going away, and that person's like, "Do we accept Bitcoin?" So it's another cool way to plant the seed. But yeah, the leaflet would be something cool. I could spread
Yeah.
around, um, and yeah, you're doing you're traveling about and stuff. But I suppose at the minute you're trying to create value, which is a thing
Mhm.
that's common in the Bitcoin space. People learn about this and then they think, "Oh, I have to do something more." That's kind of what I'm doing. I have to do something more. So what was the kind of moment where you were like, okay, I'm going to go from traveling and doing my job and holding Bitcoin or even spending Bitcoin to being like, oh, I'm going to write about Bitcoin and I'm going to create a website and I'm going to talk about it. What was
Mhm.
that? What was that moment?
Uh, I think it was just 'cause I've had the website for a bit. I also have a YouTube channel, which it's my name, but fair warning, it's all in Italian. It's
Yeah,
kind
I
of just
seen
my
that.
life.
I seen
But
that. Yeah.
yeah, I was kind of just like many different I've always been interested in doing a lot of different things at once. And I guess to use like the sailor analogy of like when your energy's like as a light, if you're a floodlight, your energy's going everywhere. But if you focus down to a laser, you can really hone in on something and do it really well.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do with the website. And I once I still need to think be more niche, or maybe I don't really know. But I decided, okay, like what can I write about that I guess people aren't really doing a lot about or writing a lot about. But most importantly, what do I like? And like what will be enjoyable for me? Like I don't want it to be a job, um, per se, obviously. But and I was like, well, I love traveling, I love Bitcoin. I guess I'll just write about them. And plus by writing about I guess Bitcoin, I kind of just write about I right now at least I'm writing about it from the perspective just trying to spread awareness, I guess, like kind of what you're doing with the podcast, but just write content that people that are in the Bitcoin space can read and relate to and appreciate in a way. Because there's already a ton of people in the space that have a lot of experience and maybe specialize in computer science or in the economic part of it all or whatever it may be. And they do put a lot of great content. And I don't think that's necessarily the avenue for me because I don't have the specialization, but I think it's still and it actually ties into like I do get frustrated. I wish I could actually build like program. I wish I had coding experience, but I don't have any coding abilities or anything like that, or any kind of like business degree or financial teachings or whatever. So like looking at all like the Bitcoin jobs that you could get, everything like requires like having business degrees or being a computer science,
Yeah.
a programmer or something. So like I kind of feel helpless at times and I really want to like, be working on something and building something and like helping Bitcoin. So I kind of just realized, well, education is really important, and it's honestly probably one of the biggest hurdles right now is just awareness of Bitcoin and educating people on it. So I decided, okay, I'll just start just writing on Bitcoin in a way that people can read it
Yeah.
that aren't in the Bitcoin sphere. Like they don't know
Yeah.
who all the big podcasts are and the big names are and the have no idea what it actually is. So that's what
Yeah.
I've been doing. And yeah, I did some pieces up BTC Isla. because I tried to give them some exposure. Because if you like Google BTCs, there's like nothing about them, and so I wanted to do that. And actually, maybe 2 hours outside of Rome, there's a new Bitcoin little community growing in a little town. It's called Fornelli, and I'll be going there. They just really revealed a the one of the Satoshi statues that they have in Lugano in Switzerland, and that they also have in El Salvador now. So, and the guy's making great progress. It's like just this one guy, little town, but I just looked today on BTC map. He has 30 merchants already. So I'm
Cool.
planning to go there sometime soon and just see what how it's going and probably do a little bit of writing about it. I'll obviously spend a lot of Bitcoin to support the
Yeah.
economy, and yeah, that's kind of I guess how I decided to end up on Bitcoin and travel. Just want to do something that I liked, that I wouldn't be annoyed or tired to write about, and that was really ultimately something that I'm passionate about.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I this past while I just been sort of looking at what conferences I could go to as well, and I think Lugano
Hmm.
was one that I was looking at. And actually, I'm learning Spanish at the minute, so I thought, well, maybe I could go to South America. Maybe maybe I could go to one that
Hmm.
far away and practice my Spanish and learn a bit Bitcoin as well. But I know I was in Italy once, and my wife is always trying to get me to take her to Italy, so maybe I could go there and go to a few conferences there or see that
Hmm.
circular economy. Um, I suppose how are you finding, when you're traveling around, even in Italy, how are you finding talking to other people that aren't Bitcoiners about Bitcoin, or even if you're meeting friends and going out for coffee, what are they receiving it like?
In Italy, at least from a merchant standpoint, it's not accepted, unfortunately. I still ask anyway. But obviously, I think a lot of my friends these days, especially the ones I talk to often, know that I'm really into Bitcoin, and I try to talk to them about it. I've even gotten one of my best friends into it. He views it as an investment, but it's still good that he's part of it now. And I don't know. Some people are open to it. Some people get kind of mad when you try to talk to them about it, which I don't get. Like, why are you getting so upset? I actually wrote an article about this on my website about like sometimes the hostility you'll face just bringing up Bitcoin to people. Um, I mean, I guess they have their own reasons. It makes sense. Over the years, there's been a lot of misinformation about it. And if you don't know what it is, you might think I'm just some kind of crypto bro trying to get rich. But obviously, it's not the case because Bitcoin's not crypto. And nonetheless, yeah. So for people who are generally, I guess it really depends on who you're talking to. But merchants and people don't. They just here in Italy, they just say no and they don't seem interested in knowing more about it. But some of my friends are they may not ask about it, but I'll talk about it a little bit, and they don't immediately shut me down. But whenever I get the opportunity, like for example, I was especially it's always like trying to pay friends back and stuff. And it's just
Yeah.
like this is so simple. If you just if you had Nostr, because I can just pay you on your via your profile without you even like needing to send me anything. I don't need your permission to pay you. And two, especially because I have a lot of international friends, it's like this money exists that like we can just send it to each other for instantly for no
Yeah.
fee, and like there's no settlement time, so I don't have to like have my bank. Well, I don't have to sell Bitcoin to put it into dollars to then have PayPal withdraw it from my bank to send it to your PayPal account to put it through your bank to end up in your hand and have everybody take their cut. Have everybody know that happened. Meanwhile, I can just like pay you directly, and it's just better.
It's just uh,
Um,
it's just electronic cash. That's what the white paper calls it. It's electronic
yeah,
cash.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I know I would have a few different friends, and in some countries they use certain apps, and in other countries they don't use apps. And it's like you're trying to pay them. It's like I don't have any cash, so I have to download this app. But if it was just done with Bitcoin, it would be so easy. So
yeah.
I think just the utility of it, the pure utility of it, will help it grow and adapt. Never mind this the store value, you know. Um,
Yeah, and that's what I do. At least like in BTC Isla Mujeres. I mean, I don't really speak Spanish, but I kind of do a mix of a little bit of Spanish and I inadvertently just convert to Italian. But and also merchants, but definitely down there, I spot trying to orange show merchants hand the flyer out. Like I explain it as, oh, it's cash but digital, because that's what it is. And I think that's probably maybe one of the best ways to just kind of have people visualize it. But then obviously one of the main things people say is, "Oh, but I can't touch it or I can't feel it, so it doesn't exist." And it's like, well, that's not true. But I understand that it's a massive mental block to get over the physicality of it, and I guess trust in technology. But I think I always tell people because everyone likes to rebuttal with, "Oh, well, if the internet goes down or blah blah blah, like all your Bitcoin's gone." And I always say, well, also anything that's not in cash that you have is also gone if you have no internet, because and also the money's not even there because it doesn't
Yeah.
actually exist. And I also obviously just described like obviously the world we're ever becoming more and more digital. Like it's like we're so digital now compared to 5 10 years ago, and I'm sure it's just going to get more and more and more digital. And I also, depending on how in depth, I don't know, I'll go or how receiving they are, I'll explain that like yeah, but if by some magic like the network does go down, at least there's a point like we at least we know that there's a ledger that's accurate
Amazing.
that um that the whole world can agree on through consensus of the blockchain that we're all following. Because with all
Yeah.
the other ones, if they go down, you don't know which one's the real one. But with Bitcoin, you do know which is the real ledger to follow to restart the network. But unless there's like a global, energy outage or massive internet outage globally, like, I don't think
It's not going
that's
anywhere.
it's ever going to go down at this point. It's
No.
just too big. Um, yeah.
Okay, so we're back. I've had a change of wardrobe.
So did
So
I.
we had a bit of I had a bit of an interruption there, so I had to cut the call short, and now we're back again, a few days or possibly weeks later. So welcome back, Keith.
Yes,
I-
thanks for having me back.
so we were just obviously, if you're listening, you know exactly what we were just talking about. We were talking about you being in Italy and adoption and using Bitcoin as money and trying to get that point across to people that it actually is digital cash. And
Mhm.
pe- people usually say like they can't see it, they can't touch it, so it's not real. But obviously it is real, and that's one of the hurdles that people have. So yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to add on to that point of trying to encourage friends or people that you come across to use
Uh,
it?
I think probably the biggest thing when it comes to this is to have an open mind when it comes to Bitcoin and when it comes to what it is, because forget if we mentioned previously, but Bitcoin's something completely different that's never existed before. Um, so there's nothing to compare it to. There's nothing in our history books to compare it to, and there's nothing in our human history to compare it to. So to really truly understand it does require a different way of looking at things and different way of just like understanding things. So I think this whole physical barrier thing just requires a new way to, well, just think about it and just look at it. And if you look like into the code, if you like get really technical, you can see that like yeah, your Bitcoin exists in code, which obviously you can't physically touch it, but you can see it. You can see it in the blockchain and you can see all the code and you can verify that it's real and that it actually exists. So I think the biggest barrier to really overcoming this is just having is opening your mind to things being different than they've always been. And I think embracing the future of just everything becoming more and more digital because it's inevitable. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest advice I could offer to people.
Yeah, I think that is a big hurdle, but I suppose the way I try to explain it to people is just everything's going digital. Everything has sort of already gone digital, like music and TV and videos and all that stuff. We don't go to get a VHS anymore. We just have Netflix,
Mm,
or we don't go and buy a vinyl record unless we're collecting them. We just have Spotify, and we don't use a Google Map, or sorry, we don't use a paper map. We use Google Maps, so everything's
yeah.
just going digital. So it's it's plain to see that money's going to go digital too. So
And it's
this is
effectively already been digital. I mean, well,
yeah,
not,
well, yeah,
well, yeah, it has been for decades,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
It's just finally we have a good money that
yeah.
that is purely all digital. And I think another thing with adoption is truly Well, it just if people truly understood the money and how just it's not how bad it is and how broken it is, and it's so obvious that Bitcoin is such a superior thing, and like yeah, if you understand money and you understand Bitcoin, it's like I'll make the bet 1,000 times out of 1,000 that you will want Bitcoin and use Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually trying to talk to somebody was asking me about Bitcoin the other day, and I had actually just come from we had the Bitcoin Ireland conference, and we had Bitcoin Vegas. We had I had a lot of Bitcoin stuff going on, and so I was kind of very much in my own Bitcoin world. And this person was asking me about Bitcoin, and he was trying to get the basics, and I kind of just took for granted how much I understand it, and I'd kind of lost the touch of trying to explain it to him in simple terms, you
Uh,
know. And he was like, he was doing the same thing. He was like, "Yeah, but I can't see it," and and I was trying to explain it to him, you know, how it was so superior and how this was freedom technology. And I just had to stop. I was like, I'm too far for this guy, you know. I need to
yeah, too deep.
too deep, yeah. So I'll have to hone my skills and bringing it back to basics. And one thing that I'm going to use, so in the interim there, you sent me across the document that you talked about that you were
Mhm.
using to Orange Pill merchants, and it's a little leaflet which is going to be so good for me explaining this to people
Mhm.
in a quick way. And then you've also got this longer document that you're working on that for me, as far as all the educational stuff I've seen, videos, books and stuff, the amount of information that you have in there and how compact it is, it's just perfect because you cover all the basics, but then you actually have points in there where when people learn the basics, they have these questions and you've got those questions answered in there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really good as well. So hopefully we'll get a link to that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then oh no, real quick, I made yeah over the past couple of weeks, I made a lot more progress on that. It's actually probably by the time this comes out, this podcast episode, it'll be live. I'm pretty much just wrapping it up, but yeah, like you said, I tried to write it as a one stop for everybody to just read, I guess, because I forget if I mentioned previously, my document had a lot of links. I'm essentially just a pile of links, but there's a lot of friction for somebody that's like not really truly into it. But I thought, how can I make this just like one thing that somebody can read and not have to constantly be following links and having to commit a
yeah,
lot of effort and just remove all frictions and also include like kind of reading it as if you're on your own adventure with yourself. Like I like because all the questions that people typically ask and all the points of like not debate but all the just the points that people don't have certainties or they have questions. I tried to include all that, so as you're reading it essentially it's like having a conversation with me. um
yeah.
and yeah, but I'm
It's
pretty
really
happy with it.
it's really well done, yeah. So hopefully you will be able to put the link or something in the
Mm-hmm.
show notes then, and then obviously the show notes for your or all the links for yourself. So um, I'll be keeping up to date with your writings and stuff and following your adventures on Instagram. Is there any other things that you would like to draw the people's attention or?
So since it happened, we can quickly touch on Pizza Day if
Oh
you want.
yeah,
That could
yeah,
be cool.
pizza day. Yeah.
So it was May 22nd. Yes, if I'm not incorrect. May 22nd, for people who don't know, is called Pizza Day in the Bitcoin community, which essentially was in 2010. 2010, yes. May 22nd, 2010 was the first time that Bitcoin was used to actually buy something in the real world, which was two pizzas from Papa John's, so 10,000 Bitcoin. There's a programmer by the name of Laszlo who did it in Florida in the US. And so it's a big day in the community. And naturally, people want to eat pizza on Bitcoin Pizza Day, like I did here in Rome with about 20 other Italians. And it was really good. It was a good time. It's fun to celebrate. But so I think just the importance of it is that we don't forget that Bitcoin is money. It should be used as money. And sometimes you always see on like social media and stuff, and like influencers and people kind of like saying that Laszlo was an idiot for like the worst trade ever, like 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas. But it's actually it shouldn't be thought about that way because one, that it was what 15 years ago. So Bitcoin yet was yet to have an actual real world value, but Laszlo gave it a real world value by spending it, by choosing to spend it. So he saw the value in it, decided to take the leap, as we say, and actually transact with it and give it an actual value. So at the time, it was worth what he thought it would be worth. And I guess we could say like Laszlo walked so we could run. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely shouldn't be. I think it's bad. It's a bit. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, and it's just not good to be looking at it from the lens of, oh my god, he traded 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas. That was so dumb.
Yeah, because he didn't he did like that wasn't a bad trade, but because until he bought those pizzas, like you said, Bitcoin had never been used to buy anything, so it didn't actually have any value.
Exactly.
He gave it value. So
Exactly.
he was the spark that started this whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually, I just had a couple of questions that I was going to ask you, and that kind of just leads me into one. It's just like a couple of silly questions, but it was, do you know the stages of adoption? Have you ever seen that curve where it's like,
Like the percentage, like from like the early innovators to
yeah,
early adopters, like the S curve, you mean?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just actually, so we've got innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and then there's a fifth one which is laggards.
Uh-huh.
So obviously Laszlo was right in there at the start because he didn't have anybody else to copy. So he was like, he was the innovator. He was the one that says, I see this as value. I'm going to use it. But my question was, where do you think, well, I suppose there's a lot of different people that are at different stages of this, I think. But where do you think Bitcoin in general is? Are we still in the early adopters phase or the innovators phase or,
I think we're in the early adopters phase for sure
yeah,
still. Yeah, I think we're probably past the early innovators phase. We're obviously still innovating. It's still rapidly going to be growing, and who knows where we'll be 10 years from now. But definitely still early adopter phase. If you just look at it from, I guess, like a number standpoint with the market capitalization of it all, and
mm,
if we want to think about it that way in comparison to other assets around the world and all the money, all the quote stuff that exists. But also, if you just like think about it from, if you just like ask 100 random people on the street about Bitcoin, I bet like maybe five, if not
yeah,
less, will actually be able to tell you anything of substance about it. And that's probably the best indicator to know where we are on that curve.
yeah, that's a good way to see it. Yeah, because I've heard people saying that when your taxi driver's talking about it, it's too late. You know, when everybody in the street is talking about it, then you're too late. And there's a common thing that we always, well, Bitcoiners would say is, you know, you're still early because people hear about the price going up and then they always say, I should have bought it last year. I should have bought it 5 years ago. Oh, it's too late to buy now. So my question would be, what would happen in the Bitcoin space where you would think we're not still early? Would it be that when your taxi driver or your Uber driver is talking about it?
I wouldn't say that. I think that could happen maybe towards the top of cycles when it reaches that point. But I would say there's a difference between talking about it from an investment standpoint and trying to get more, fiat money out of it
Yeah,
versus talking about it and actually using it as money. Like if the taxi driver was trying to, orange pill you about it as money and like why it's better and everything, as opposed to just like, oh, you can make a lot of money on this. I think that could be, an indication of the average person. If it becomes more mainstream to talk about it in a way as money rather than as an investment. So I still think we're quite far off from that. But
yeah,
obviously this year is rapidly a lot of things have been happening on the institutional level and the nation state level. Um, and as is evident, like the Bitcoin conference is massive and is kind of just like people. I mean, I didn't go this year. I've never been to the Bitcoin 20, the one that Bitcoin Magazine does, but it's clear that it's kind of like completely taken off from freedom tech and the plebs to more like for institutions and nations and
yeah,
politicians and stuff. So we're rapidly, blasting in. And as you see every day, there's like, it seems like there's a new company that's like deciding to adopt the MicroStrategy or strategy playbook and adopting it as a treasury asset, and even just like buying 10 Bitcoin. It seems like more and more institutions and companies are rapidly adopting it. And I think there's obviously a massive long way to go, but yeah, I think we're still pretty early, but I would say once people start actually talking about it as money and rather than like using it to make more dollars or more euros or more whatever, then it would be when we are more in the middle of the curve, at least in my opinion.
yeah. That's kind of what happened. The progression for me is you see Bitcoin as a way to make more money, and then eventually you get so far down the rabbit hole that you realize that Bitcoin is the money.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
so like, why am I going to trade this thing for something else? So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah. So whenever people start to realize that, then I suppose
Mhm.
that's what you want to see, isn't it? So yeah, I suppose the only other question I have is what's your time frame? Obviously, you're on a Bitcoin standard now. You're living Bitcoin's a part of your life. You don't
Yeah.
have too much more to do in your own life apart from just kind of orange pill people around you to make it more convenient for yourself. But what would you, in your mind, what is the next big event in Bitcoin? Do you have a certain date where you think, this is going to be big for Bitcoin? Is it like the next cycle, or is it like
Uh,
2030, or
I honestly couldn't really say. I just think as it becomes more and more mainstream and as more people start accepting it, more
yeah,
businesses, which we saw Block or Square. I always forget. No, Square is owned by Block, which is run by Jack Dorsey. They're recently, I forget if it's live now, but pretty much they're going to enable natively on all of the Square terminals, Lightning payments.
yeah, I
So
seen
even if
that.
the merchant doesn't accept it, like if they don't accept it in Bitcoin, like people can still pay with Bitcoin, and they'll do something on the back end to convert it over to the currency that the merchant wants to accept. But I think that's a really massive thing because I think that in the US it enables like 4 million stores to accept it. So I think just as we more and more people like Steak and Shake, a big like a fast food chain in the US is also accepting it. So a lot
Yeah,
of Bitcoiners are going there just to spend the sats. So I think businesses are realizing that people, but there's a market. There's a very large market for people. Even though we're few, we want to actually spend the money, spend the Bitcoin, and I think naturally people just want to attract more customers. And I think in the process they'll actually learn about it and realize, oh wait, we want to be accepting it because we want the Bitcoin, not because we want more customers. And
yeah,
so I think the next logical step is just more adoption and more people, more businesses accepting it, more people slowly accepting it and just using it. I think that's the next big step. But I don't know. I have no idea when like there's any numbers involved or any dates. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the rest of this epoch. Until
yeah,
2028, the next halving.
yeah. There's not too many places around me now where I can spend my Bitcoin, so I have a big uphill
Mm.
challenge to try and get to convince people to let me spend my Bitcoin there. I think of two places, and they're both
Oh,
very, very far away.
oh no.
I think I'm probably going to have to travel more. Like we were talking about the Bitcoin Prague conference, so maybe I'll have to just make an effort to go to those places and spend my Bitcoin and
Yeah,
learn how I can orange pill these merchants because I never thought I would ever want to spend my Bitcoin, but now, like you said, it's like it needs to be that needs to be the next phase for people to learn about it and to adopt it and to realize that Bitcoin is the money and that they should accept the Bitcoin and then they should actually hold the Bitcoin and keep the Bitcoin.
yeah.
So
And you could always just, if you're not living on a full Bitcoin standard, like I always tell people, like you can just buy more of it.
yeah,
Like if you spend it, you can easily just buy more of it.
yeah.
Like
Or
you
if
could
you,
even literally just replenish your stack right then and there by just buying what you would have, like rebuying the amount that you spent essentially in that minute,
yeah,
if you
so
think about it that way.
even if you know what you're going to spend in that day or that week, you just buy that amount of Bitcoin and then you spend that Bitcoin. So it works out the same.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It would probably better in your favor in the long run because you actually have more purchasing power over time.
yeah. One final question before I let you go here. With spending Bitcoin, I know you're moving around, you're traveling, but the capital gains tax in most countries
Mhm.
on spending your Bitcoin, how do you manage that, or do you just dismiss that and think, do you track your spending?
I well, I don't personally do it, but I pretty much use Strike. I forget if you
Yeah,
mentioned that at all, but I use Strike, which is a Bitcoin only company. And they're a US company, but they're like in 100 countries, but most of the features are currently native to the US. But nonetheless, since I do use them for pretty much everything. They keep track of it all. And at the end of the year, they give me a document that essentially says what my capital gain or loss was on the year. And from there, I just plug that number into the tax software, and it tells me how much I owe. Um, but I mean, if you don't have a company or software doing that all for you, then yeah, you would have to technically keep track of it all.
Yeah.
Guess it's up to everybody's discretion of how well they want to do that or what they want to think. But I live, even though if I don't agree with all the laws, I live within the laws because I don't want to have problems, obviously, down the line.
Yeah. The tax is one thing that you can't really get away with not paying because they're going to come find you, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's
You-
good to pay taxes on
Yeah.
your capital gain. We're
Yeah.
kind of like think it's not good because it's like, oh no, you're giving money up. But I mean, if you think about it, like if you're paying taxes, that means you made a capital gain, which means you weren't debased, which means you made money. So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to pay the taxes. It kind of sucks, but at the same time, you made money, so it's a good
Yeah.
thing to want to pay the tax. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you would have lost money if you
It's
think
not a
about it that way.
it's not a bad complaint if you have more tax to pay.
Exactly. If you
No.
just think about it ahead of time and know, I guess if you're going to have to pay taxes, so you can maybe allocate differently or do whatever you want to do. I don't know, but yeah,
Until we get to the stage where we're all in the Bitcoin standard and we have signed money and there's no need for anybody to pay tax.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Right. That's brilliant. So I think we'll wrap it up here and let you go then. One final word from you, or is there any links or your Instagram or anything you want people to know to get in touch with you?
Just my website, keithmeola.com, which I guess you'll put in the show note, and
Yep.
then I'm very active on Noster,
Oh yes.
which we could put my link or my npub and my link. I guess my link, my one of my links is obviously in the show notes. But yeah, those are pretty much the two main places can mostly be found, I suppose. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. I'll get all the links in the show notes and people can reach out to you if they want.
Yeah,
So we'll leave
sounds
it
great.
there. Thanks very much, Keith.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. I
Cheers.
appreciate it.
Bye.
It was a good time.
Bye.
Bye.